Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is really special because we are visiting our favorite aquascaping store here in Portugal, Soluções Aquáticas. Located in Barreiro, they have everything you need for platen tanks and aquascaping. And guess what? George Farmer himself came to the store to do a live workshop, sharing his tips, techniques and aquascaping skills with everyone here. It was such an inspiring day and I'm so excited to show you everything. So let's get into it.
Copy someone, if that's okay. You ever seen an aquascape you love on the internet or in a book or a magazine and you want to use that as inspiration, that's okay. Make sure your system is capable of growing those plants. So when you go through your plant list, look at the most difficult plants and then make sure your equipment is capable of growing that most difficult plant, okay? So, if you choose something like, I don't know, Hemianthus cuba, this carpeting plant down here, that's more of an advanced species, so you definitely will be needing, high levels of lighting, good CO2 injection, good circulation levels, nutrient-rich substrates, liquid fertilizers, all of that good stuff. However, if you wanted to grow, I don't know, Anubias, or trident fern, for instance, you might not need CO2 injection or lots of light, and you can keep it nice and slow and steady. So, think about when you're aquascaping or creating a new aquarium from scratch. Think about what is your actual goal. What are you doing it for? Are you doing it to have something to relax and just enjoy, watching grow nice and slowly? Or do you want to do it to kind of stretch yourself? Do you want to kind of learn loads about trimming, growing advanced plants, having fun with testing and things like some people are really into this? Or do you want to take things like super slow, just grow Anubias in the dark, that kind of thing? And there's obviously everything in between. So just think about, how you see your hobby. Are you a geeky kind of numbers guy, chasing things and trying to grow things the best you can? Or are you more of a chill kind of guy, or you're a contest guy and you're just obsessed with creating the most beautiful thing you can? Just so think about your own identity, if you like, as an aquascaper, and then you can kind of craft something that's suitable for that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. I did have a little look at the hardscape yesterday, so I do have a rough idea of what we're going to do, but it is going to be very much organic kind of thing. I haven't even chosen the plant layout yet, so it's going to be very much you're going to learn with me and go through the journey with me, and hopefully some of you guys might be able to help me out as well with plant prep and things like that. So, any questions so far before we get going? No? Cool. I'm just going to have a little drink of water.
One question.
Yeah.
Where did you get your inspiration for this?
Actually, I was married before. My ex-wife actually.
That's not what I was expecting.
No, it's a funny story. So she was very much, when the wives are trying to keep up with the other wives, the other wife has a nice aquarium, they want a nice aquarium. So she's like, oh, so-and-so down the road has a beautiful aquarium, I think we should have a beautiful aquarium. So I've actually always kind of loved aquariums as a kid, never kept one, but my uncle had one. So I always thought I'd love an aquarium, and then the wife said, just get an aquarium. And then I've always loved nature, so I thought planted aquarium. So actually bought loads of plants, but they're actually house plants. They weren't suitable for aquariums, so they actually all died. But because of the kind of person I was, I didn't want to give up, and I researched it. And then I found out about Takashimano, and then that was it. I was just obsessed. So that was sort of early 2000s. Yeah, so pretty much as soon as I discovered Takashimano, that was like an epiphany, like a bit of a spiritual moment where you realise this is where you want to take the direction of your hobby, and then that's my hobby then took a direction for my life. So it all started off really with my ex-wife.
That's how you started, I understand. But nowadays, if you are going to
for inspiration for an aquascape,
or for a customer, do you get some? I mean, from a customer, maybe you get some inspiration.
It often starts off with the materials that I have available, actually, and then from there I might have more of a concept about what I want to create. But it normally starts with the raw material. So if I go to a shop like here, Yeah, it's limited by obviously the materials I have to hand. So I'll often pick stuff that I know is going to be hopefully easy to maintain in the long term. I do like a long-term aquascape, one that can be maintained for several years if possible. The hardscape and the plants will be influenced by that long-term thing. So I tend to go for crypts, alluvius, ferns, bucephalandra, slow-growing, carpeting. Don't tend to use stem plants in the long term because I just find them too much to maintain So they're great for the beginning of the tank, but in the long term I don't really use stems so much. But yeah, inspiration you can get from anywhere. Get other people, landscapes, dreams, you name it. There's no limit to inspiration. Okay, first I think normally I might put the soil in or the substrate system in first, but today I'm going to go for the hardscape because we're actually going to glue the hardscape in position to stop it from floating. So where's the width? It's worth investing in good hardscape. If you're lucky enough to live in a house with a garden, you can just stash it in the garden like I do. But yeah, make sure you pick the right pieces. So hopefully your shop will have a dojo, where you can experiment with pieces, or you can literally take measurements if you wish. But a big beginner mistake to make is actually not using big enough pieces or more impactful enough. So don't be shy about using like really bold hardscape. The hardscape can actually almost be enough on its own, for a decent aquascape. Although I do love to use plants as well, which obviously we'll use later. So when we're looking at our hardscape, we're actually using the same kind of. We wouldn't use multiple different types of wood because it wouldn't look so natural. Although they do have a slightly different kind of colour, but they will equalise over time once they're in the water. So you can kind of think about how is that best going to look in the aquarium. So just look at it at all angles and just have an experiment. Take your time. If you're doing this at home, obviously you enjoy the process. Take your time doing it. You can take as long as you like. I have an aquarium at home now. Which is it's an Aquascape line 90, similar sort of size to this, and it's had hardscape in there now for 6 weeks. Completely dry, and I just spend a little bit of time every day, just tinkering around, playing around with it. Maybe even take a photo and keep a folder of the different photos, and you can go back and pick out your favourite layout. But just take your time doing it, enjoy the process, don't rush it. So I really like this wood. It's quite gnarly, it's got lots of texture, lots of detail, lots of opportunities there to insert your epiphyte plants, your attaching plants, which I love to use. But yeah, do take your time choosing your hardscape. It's such an important part of the aquascape. If you get the hardscape right, it can be quite forgiving later on in terms of your plants. It can still look really effective even if your plants aren't really that fantastic. It looks a bit odd. We've got obviously a big gap underneath, but that's going to be, the substrate's going to fill that up, and we're going to put some stones in as well. But I think I'm quite happy with that as a starting point. It's really accentuating the height of the aquarium. You can see the aspect ratio is obviously quite small, as we mentioned earlier. But yeah, it's going to be a nice kind of island, composition, I think. Where's the actual tank going to be in the long term? Where's Ivo? Where's this going to be?
I'm still deciding about that. Shop is small,
yeah.
So probably the spot I'll put it is near the nature, making like an L shape.
Oh, okay.
Or next to the balcony on
Okay.
the other side.
Okay.
Still wondering about, but
But island suits
Yeah.
everything because you can then see it from So, you know, sort of aim for mid-groundy kind of plants all the way around here, tall plants in the centre, and then either cosmetic kind of sand foreground, gravel foreground, or carpeting. So we can, if we're doing carpeting, it's quite a deep tank, but we will be upgrading the lighting, which will be able to grow a carpet, especially if you're using kind of easier species like Marsilea or Liliopsis, maybe Eliocaris would work. But we'll take a view, see what plants we have available, and then we'll not a big fan of Monte Carlo. I like it as an attaching plant. Yeah. I prefer it as I always prefer a grassy, you know, part for the foreground. It looks more natural. Yeah. I keep staring at this as Philippe Oliveira's tank. This is, yeah. I mean, this, even though it's got a little bit of algae and mossy, it just looks so natural because you've got so many different textures combined together. Whereas if you look at this Hemianthus, it looks beautiful, but it doesn't look natural to me. You know, it looks like just a monoculture. You know. So, but that's just where you can think about your own tastes. You know, your own kind of style. You know, you can be quite stylised and deliberately keep that kind of minimalist monoculture approach, or you can go more chaotic and kind of jungle style. So, you know, think about your own, you know, what you fancy yourself. Okay, let's see if we can pop that in somewhere nice, shall we? Perfect. Okay, Sirius stone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We need small pieces.
This is just part 1 of this amazing workshop series, so make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss part 2. Leave it like if you are enjoying it so far.